2,400 square foot typical two-story home, and how many kilowatts of solar are required. You see it's a little under 2, up to 4 in climate zone 13, Fresno, Bakersfield. And climate zone 15 is the clear outlier, the Coachella Valley, Palm Springs, Desert Hot Springs. There's a huge cooling load out there, right? That's electricity. And so the amount of PV required to offset that total electric load of a typical dual fuel house is much higher out there. And translating it into number of panels, typical panels, 305, 315 watts these days. So it's 8 to 13 in most climate zones, except those modernists in Palm Springs. So that changes by climate zone, you notice, and it changes by square footage too. That's how the equation works. Question? Question is, community solar, is that a requirement? No, if we can prove that our house is properly shaded enough that solar is not viable, we get out of that requirement. Now that's a big burden on us to be able to prove. We have to prove that either no usable roof space is 80 square feet or more. Most of our roofs are gonna have spaces that big. Or no roof space has 70% solar access over the course of the year. That too is a difficult thing to prove unless we've got extreme shading conditions. So if you can prove that you don't meet the solar requirement, you can do zero PV. Community solar is an option to more cost effectively, theoretically, meet the individual home requirements for solar. And it's just now, it's the Wild West, it's just now starting to emerge what it really means. And I think there's only one approved application in SMUD territory in Sacramento that hasn't been released yet. So we don't really know what it means. The CEC has to approve every application for community solar on a case-by-case basis. And the way they're going to do that, as I understand it, it has to meet the spirit of the code, which is that each individual dwelling unit has rooftop solar. So in order to meet it, you'll have to have an off-site array or a central array in a park, let's say, with power allocated to each of the individual units, either virtually or directly. So early reports, which I read in the LA Times, maybe some of you saw it, of power being produced in the desert at a fraction of the price of putting it on the roof, I don't think are likely to come to pass in California and be approved by the CEC, because that really doesn't, you've got distribution losses, you're producing it on a totally different grid subsection than the one where you're adding the load. So they're unlikely to be approved from what I understand. Not to put Ruby on the spot, but do you have anything to add to the community solar question and what that's likely to look like as a substitute for rooftop solar? Okay. Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. Unfortunately, when the CEC put that into the code, they alluded that the utilities would figure it out ourselves for everyone. So we're in that process right now. Hopefully we have something by the time the code goes into play. I'm not sure of that.
Yeah.
You're still maximizing your own rooftop space though, right? With putting solar as much as possible where you can before you dive into communities.
What was the question?
If
just address Ally's point one more time before we go to yours. There's a term in the code that you're going to become familiar with, effective annual solar access. For any of you who are interested in digging deep and seeing it, where that comes into play, sort of to Ally's point, is there's exceptions for climate zone 15 that might allow you to be right about here, but only after you max out the effective annual solar access. So if you have pieces of your roof that are unusable, that face north, that are too small, that are shaded, you can put in a reduced amount in climate zone 15 by a special exception, but there's a point at which they'll say, you gotta redesign the roof. We won't approve that. It's at 1.5 watts per square foot. There's also a 2-story exception and a 3-story exception that work similarly, but they're not going to allow you to jump straight to the reduced amount. You're going to need to max out what's available on your roof. So if any of you have seen those 3 exceptions, I don't think they're going to be very useful to my clients. So we're going to end up installing this amount of solar. I'm sorry, yeah.
Is Long Beach, I heard that Long Beach, some areas of Long Beach are actually in 2 climate zones? Is that
Yes.
true?
Long Beach
What
is...
distinguishes that? Like, how do I know for my client site?
Long Beach is in climate zone 6 and 8, generally dissected by the 405.
Okay.
And there's an online Google Earth map where you can zoom in on a particular address and see what climate zone you're in. And that's really important because it's going to affect everything in your modeling and your solar requirements.
So would, I'm just assuming it's 8 north and 6 south?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Your energy consultant should have a good handle on that. Although I did have one project in Ojai where I submitted it as 9 and it was actually 16. And because, you know, there's borders and there's gray areas, so, you know, make sure you do that research.
One quick question about the direct energy. Are you saying that with SCE, you can actually have direct energy? I'm coming from SDGAE, where you have to feed everything into the grid, and then you have to pull everything out. The only way to get around that is that by one of the batteries, storage batteries, and then you can store energy in the battery and then operate right off the battery.
Yeah.
Is SCE different?
No, and I'm not advocating off-the-grid survivalist, you know. The way we should be building these homes is grid-tied, but large parts of the day, I'm saying, and I've got a chart to show it, you're going to be running power directly from your roof, fully fueling your house, but when the sun's down, you're going to be pulling off the grid. And so the grid's our virtual battery, in a way. We're putting our extra on there, we're pulling from it when we don't have enough. And it's a very advantageous setup for ratepayers, the way net metering is set up currently, which is why solar panel power makes so much financial sense. Now, I have a client, the Changa Indian tribe, where they have to run power way out in the boonies sometimes. I might advocate off-grid battery systems rather than the cost of infrastructure in an extreme case like that. It's possible these days, but not most of the time. And we'll talk about how we can do power staying on if the grid goes down, because that's not automatic. So we need to learn how to explain to our clients, builders, developers, homeowners, how having solar panels on our projects is going to affect their electric bill. You're going to get that question. I'm pleased to say I have 4 years running of 0 electric bill. And that helped me greatly start up my energy consulting business, I'll tell you. But only because we took extreme measures in how we designed that house, and we oversized the solar array to cover the gas usage too. We wanted to show we were net zero. And now my electric car eats up that excess. So we're not actually violating any net metering requirements. Don't report me, Ruby. So the right way to answer this question is, it's possible, but probably not. because we can't account for how you're gonna occupy this house, how often the windows are gonna be open, whether you run, you know, skylights wide open with the air conditioning running. We can't know what time you're gonna run all the equipment. Remember, there's a 3-to-1 difference in many rate plans between the cost of power at different times of day. So someone working from home is gonna have a very different pattern of use. So the marketing pieces that our builders put out for would-be home buyers are extremely important for addressing this question. There's a bunch of traps for us here. One possible answer to this question is, you know, we're not sure, but when the CEC looked at the 2019 Energy Code, they calculated the incremental cost of the entire set of upgrades in the code, including solar, $40 per month on the mortgage. And they calculated the savings at $80 a month. When you put it in those clear terms, it's a no-brainer. That's how all these features got in the code. And so that's a possible answer you could give your clients on the entirety of the 2019 code cycle. A better answer for large-scale developments would be, we worked with our energy consultant and we found estimated utility costs for this condo unit, this single-family home, are likely to be $88 a month. And the one down the street is at $291. And when you add up those savings, every 5 years it's $5,000. What would you do with $5,000 extra? You'd take a great trip. So, you know, moving into this house has a compelling financial story for that family. Instead of just, it's got a 4 kilowatt array, right? Our white lab coat sales technique is much less effective than putting it in financial terms that our clients can understand. And energy modeling allows us, gives us the tools to estimate that. Another good treatment of this question would be, one of my clients is a solar installer, and they have it set up with their builder clients that if the homeowner gets their first annual bill, because when you have solar, net metering, you get updates throughout the year, but you settle up at the end of the year with the utility company to account for seasonal changes, right? If you settle up with the utility company and you find your lifestyle needs more solar panels, that energy company is already pre-contracted to come out and add 2 panels, add 4 panels. They're already thinking about that potential growth, which by the way would be great for an electric car, wouldn't it too? I did an analysis for a client the other day in Carlsbad, and you know, to fully charge a Tesla 15,000 miles a year is 8 panels for him in Carlsbad with the weather down there. So it's important for us to, it's a benefit we can add our clients to have already thought through these questions of adding solar panels for electric cars or unexpected occupant behavior. So those are a few good ways to handle that question. Did you have a question?
Nick,
Yeah.
just to piggyback on that, you know, people who are especially doing new construction homes or building from ground up, they want this beautiful home, this beautiful design, but what they're not thinking about, and even those who are moving into existing homes, is the utility bill at the end of the day. They move into these large spaces or developing large spaces. They're not thinking about that $400 or $500 bill that is coming to them monthly or bi-monthly for their utility bill. So having that conversation with them is very important, where you're talking to them about putting in these energy efficient measures, and it may be costing a little bit more upfront, but in the long run, they're not having to pay for it
my neighbor just got an EV and she brings it over to charge in my garage because she didn't get one installed because she thinks my power's free. I don't tell her that. I love her, but yeah, this is where people are.
For a while, Long Beach was giving them out.
Free chargers. Yeah.
Are they still doing that? Do you know?
I think so, but they're like 2 cycles of technology old, and you have to get it fully permitted, which I recommend. Okay, here's to your question. This is my house on a day in February. So down the x-axis is the day, blue is my solar production, and green is my usage. So the story to tell our buyers about living in a solar house, or our clients, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on this February day, we're not pulling anything off the grid. You see that? We're living what I call under the mountain of solar production. But when I got up at 6 a.m. and made coffee and opened the fridge, we pulled off the grid. We pulled off the grid all night to properly ventilate our house. And then when we got home in the evening, the heater turned on, we prepared dinner, right? So it's a really beneficial symbiotic relationship with the utility company that we can dump the excess we create in the middle of the day, put it in a change jar to draw on later in the night, and we're going to do that throughout the course of the year. We're going to get updates from the utility company, and we're going to settle up at the end of the year based on whether we owe them or they owe us. Keep in mind that it's all going to be charged at the time of use rate at the time we pulled it off the grid or put it on the grid. Has anyone looked at the new time of use rates where peak period starts from 4 to 9 p.m. in Edison territory? Yeah, it's a different way of living, and you're going to find your buyers, some of them are going to completely ignore it as long as the bill doesn't climb too high. Others are going to climb right on and go, I want to charge my car in the middle of the night when it's 18 cents or whatever it is, not 45 cents in the middle of the day. They're going to embrace it. And that's the way our state is signaling us, right? That it's more expensive and dirtier to produce energy from 4 to 9 p.m. So they're going to give us a price signal to try to cut usage that way. And all our solar homes are going to be on time of use rates. We can't go back to those old tiers that we were used to. So I really like these bullets to capture the story. These California Clean Energy homes are designed to produce electricity equal to the electricity used over the course of the year. California net zero. We can sell that, right? There again is the CEC's calculations on the 2019 code cycle cost versus savings, because we're starting to see some rumblings in San Diego on rate increases, aren't we? I would far rather be in a house with features 1 through 5 than my grandma's house dealing with time of use rates. I got absolutely no hope of controlling my cooling energy use in grandma's house with that old envelope, do I? But in one of these new homes, I can pre-cool 2 degrees before 4 p.m. I can program my thermostat to do that and maybe ride out much of that peak period. So these homes are going to be much better able to handle the time of use rates. For you guys, we included this section that was left on the cutting room floor for builders because we didn't want to confuse them and show them optional items that they might not have in their communities. And this will get at heat pumps. This will get at heat pump water heaters. So let's go over it real quick. How am I doing on time, Alex?
You're doing good.
Okay. My favorite upgrade for this code cycle is the recovery ventilator, the HRV, ERV. Anyone use them in projects yet? No? Think of them like the vestibule at Target. The first sliding door slides open. You step in the vestibule and it closes behind you, along with the outdoor air. Now the interior door slides open and you step into the store where it's conditioned. That's how an HRV works too. It's continually exhausting from inside the house, continually bringing in fresh air, and then through a heat exchanger, it swaps those air streams so that instead of conditioning 105-degree outdoor air in Palm Springs with our air conditioner in summer, it might be 85 when it hits our conditioned space, just by running the exhausted air past it. So this saves us on heating and cooling expense to have a recovery ventilator. But the reason I'm excited about them is the indoor air quality story. Feature number 3, build, tight, and ventilate. Because I can filter this air. It's got to be MERV 13 filtered according to the 2019 code, by the way. All supply and balanced ventilation systems have to have a MERV 13 filter on them too, starting next year. So the air's not coming in my house to begin with those pollutants. And 2, it's balanced ventilation, which I think is a huge upgrade over the exhaust fan in the bathroom. Relying on that exhaust fan to bring in the right amount of fresh air and distribute it throughout our homes, it's unrealistic. So this is gonna not pull that negative pressure that an exhaust only is. It's gonna properly distribute it through the house. And, you know, for a builder level, this might be a $1,500 upgrade. Custom homes is gonna be a lot more money, but on a large scale, it's a reasonable upgrade. And by the way, 10% energy compliance credit in my models. So I think I'm gonna end up speccing a lot more of these and a lot fewer whole house fans in the new code cycle. And a note on multifamily. There's a new requirement, mandatory requirement for multifamily only in the 2019 code to have balanced ventilation in every unit. So gone are the days where we can just put in an exhaust fan in the kitchen or bathroom and consider that multifamily building ASHRAE checked. Why'd they do that? Because studies show that exhaust-only ventilation in multifamily buildings, instead of bringing fresh air in from the outside, much of that air they're moving is between units. It's a special case, isn't it, multifamily buildings? So you're not getting the amount of fresh air necessarily that ASHRAE scientists, nerdier than me, have calculated we need. So balanced ventilation, a mandatory requirement in multifamily, new construction. There's one exception, and that's if you blower door test the units and prove they're tight enough. But I think you're gonna find that's tougher to deal with than just putting an HRV or some other balanced ventilation method in multifamily buildings. Questions on HRVs? Okay. Heat pumps. Heat pumps are all electric heating and cooling systems. We've had them for a while, and they really sip energy. They have inverter-driven motors and pumps for the refrigerant so that they adjust, they modulate to the demand in the room. Efficiencies are 40% better than traditional dual fuel systems. And there's a brand new change to the energy code now, what we call the all-electric pathway for modeling. So before, when I put a heat pump in my house, I was competing with a dual fuel traditional split system, and I had a bit of a compliance deficit. Now, if I put an all-electric heating and cooling system, California has set the reference I'm compared to also an all-electric heating and cooling system of minimum efficiency. So you're going to find much better compliance impact for heat pumps than you're used to. Furthermore, there used to be an arbitrary cap on mini-split heat pumps in the code software, and they're doing away with that. So that's why Ruby's hired us to do another training class on heat pumps, because compared to the old code cycle, it's a completely new day for heat pumps in California. If you looked at them before, it's time to look at them again. And not only because they look a whole lot better than they used to. The high wall unit, indoor unit, while that's still the cheapest way to go, ceiling cassettes are pretty attractive. And look at this one in Mitsubishi's catalog. That's a one-directional that throws the air a long way. So these are not your grandmother's heat pumps. They can be installed very attractively, they're super efficient, and they're all electric. And when we talk to builders, builders understand as soon as you put solar panels on the roof, boy, now it starts to make sense to change things to all electric. because we're generating on the roof. Maybe we should change space conditioning to all electric. And maybe we will look at those induction cooktops. Just makes intuitive sense, doesn't it? So these are going to come on strong in California. The millennials will love having a remote control in every room. They're used to that, right? They're space saving. Usually the outdoor units are smaller footprint than what we're used to in split systems. And the real key selling point, they're moving the heat with refrigerant in liquid form, right? Rather than through ductwork with all those resulting losses. So I encourage you to look at these as an improvement, as an optional upgrade over our traditional gas heating, electric cooling. And heat pump technology is also being harnessed for water heating. This is what your heat pump water heater is going to look like. The traditional tank you're used to, but with the condensing unit on top typically. So you do need a little extra headroom for these guys, but they're 300+% efficient compared to the 97% electric tank or electric tankless, because they're taking heat out of the air and compressing it and putting it into our tank. So that's a much more efficient way to do it. Similarly with the compliance, if I choose an electric water heater, the house I'm compared to is going to have an electric water heater. So it's much easier to make these pencil in the energy models. So I encourage you to look at these for your survivalist clients who want a tank, right? Also for the ones who are interested in energy savings and switching end uses more and more to electric. Because with those two last slides, we just did away with the top two uses of gas in our house. And all that's left are cooling and clothes drying, and we have technologies for those too. And I'm not talking about those terrible glow orange electric cooktops. I'm talking about this one. This is a KitchenAid. This is my house. I love it. It boils water in half the time. It's all electric, right? And I know that to simmer oatmeal, I put it on 3. You can't do that with a gas style. I'm also not introducing those gas combustion byproducts into my living space. So they're a little more expensive up front for sure, but the operating cost is similar to a gas cooktop, and I think much more usable cooking space, counter space, sleek looking. I encourage you to look at those two. Now we've eliminated 3 of the 4 gas uses, and the only other one's the clothes dryer. There's electric and heat pump clothes dryers out there that I'm told work great. I don't have one yet. So now all electric home designs are possible, fairly cost effective, and where you really can make the numbers pencil is where you don't need to put gas infrastructure into the building at all. When you can switch all those 4 end uses to electricity, I'm told you can save $6,000 a lot on running the gas infrastructure, not to mention inside the house. So Ronald Reagan was onto this in the 60s. He was a spokesman for all electric General Electric houses. So I put it in the category with electric cars. This is something we had figured out a long time ago, the possibility to have all electric houses. We didn't quite have the technology right, did we? We had those terrible glowing electric cooktops that would kill a baby that touched it. But now we've got heat pump technology, much better way to achieve these all electric homes. So this isn't anything you're going to be asked to do now. I just put it out there in the future as something that's coming, because an all electric home has 40% lower greenhouse gas emissions today than a dual fuel one. And as our grid greens up, that number will get better and better. Many of your clients are going to be like this guy, concerned about the climate. They should be a slam dunk for us to sell these features to. Because by buying one of these homes, they're doing something about the number 1 and 2 sources of greenhouse gas emissions in the state. They're going to drive an electric car, pre-wired in your house, standard in the code. Maybe you even put an electric vehicle charger in there. and their building's going to use less energy, emit less. This is a quote from Sam Rashkin, Department of Energy Star for Homes guy. I heard him speak once. He started me on this road. Once values understood, price is less important. We've all had our spouse come back from the mall looking like this, right? You'll never guess how much I saved. We've got a value proposition similar to that. If you add up features 1 through 5 that we went over, we can create perceived value one item at a time with our clients, and hopefully at that point their purse strings open up and we're able to get these features into homes, and even if they're required, get the perceived value for them. Here's a typical marketing piece that we would encourage builders to think about. Actually show the mortgage and the utilities for your house versus a used home, and show how it can be cash flow positive. Not many builders are doing that today. So I told you about EE before PV. Ruby mentioned it earlier. These really go hand in hand to build an efficient house that uses less energy and put a minimum amount of solar on it. So we're self-generating, self-using a lot of that power, less reliance on the grid. That brings down our electric costs. It helps our state meet our greenhouse gas emissions goals. And these homes really are differentiated, I think you'll agree, from what we built just a short time ago, and certainly from used homes down the street. I hope you'll also agree, many of these features are must-have items. MERV 13 filtration for your family? Yes, please. I'm trying to figure out how to put it in my house right now, but it takes some doing. Like your backup camera. I'd never buy a car without a backup camera today. So we are going to give you access to the behind the password protected website for this program. There's additional resources for you to dig deeper into this subject matter. There's also the Energy Code ACE website, which Ruby mentioned before, which is a great repository. And now we're going to shift gears, and I'm going to have Alex come up and talk about the marketing side of things. We've got lunch coming in under an hour, half an hour probably. So any questions before I hand over the remote control? Okay.
Do you know of any incentives or is anyone working with lenders on this? Because, you know, $40+ a month mortgage is an extra $10,000 that people will qualify for. So is there any like demonstrable way to show lenders, hey, this is the real savings in energy? Because that's kind of variable, right? You have some deals over there.
Yeah.
This is inevitably going to make building more expensive state already. So just
Good question, right? We can build this house. It can have these energy savings, but if the appraisers, if the mortgage companies aren't in the loop and able to factor that in, buyers may not qualify. I don't know a lot about that area. I do hear there's a lot going on in that area. Maybe Ruby has something to add on green features and appraisals and mortgages.
There are some lenders that are working on it, and there are some that are already very aware of it and offer special loans and incentives, interest rates for projects like this. Fannie and Freddie are very well aware of this, and I was at an appraiser workshop earlier this year, and they are working on, you know, creating the loans that are needed for this type of work. But really the demand is what's going to drive it, and so, you know, it's still ramping up, but they are very aware of it, they're working on it, but you really won't see it come to fruition until the demand really is there. But unfortunately, it's like, you know, kind of like chicken or egg
yeah,
first.
demand's there, but I can't buy it.
Yeah, but they are aware of it, they are working on it, so it's not something that's like completely far-fetched, it's in the making.
Nick, can I comment on that?
Yeah,
So at Welcome, so
ADU
that's-
company.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Nick. So what's your name? What Luis's question is actually there is a program that has been out since the mid-90s called an EEM. That stands for an energy efficient mortgage. So right now, FHA does issue a government insured loan So it's actually an FHA 203K EEM. That's the long title of it. So these mortgages have been around forever. The demand, the need for these mortgages to be sexy has never been possible until actually now. So you're going to see a lot of mortgage brokers, mortgage bankers that are going to start actually advertising EEM mortgages, right? So I'm a licensed mortgage broker, so at Welcome, that's kind of where we're headed, because it just makes sense. Where that is going to help your clients is because of the fact that, so now with an EEM mortgage, it doesn't ding their DTI, their debt to income ratio, which is huge, right? Because what the guidelines are saying, that Ruby mentioned, Fannie and Freddie Mac guidelines, what they're stating is that because you're making homes more energy efficient, right, that's not going to be a ding towards your DTI, and the reason why is because you're going to be able to recoup the savings,
Right.
so which is phenomenal. So for instance, right now in a 203K FHA mortgage, the limited is limited to $35,000. On an EEM, that limited will actually increase, and there won't be even a hit to the DTI, which is humongous. That's going to be the game changer. This program is nationwide. People think that this is just a California thing, but it's not. EEMs are available across the nation. So,
Thank you.
And with that, there wasn't value that was being given to energy efficient homes, like homes that have solar PV versus homes that don't. They're now working with the trade-offs to be able to give value to those homes. So they're, with what you were saying, the EMs, they're now looking at the value of the home with these additional measures, which is going to increase the value. So energy efficiency, right? So making sure that you have like a high efficient mechanical system, water heater, insulation, all of the things that actually been talked about. Those are all of the things that they're really looking at now, and the utility bill. They're now having talks of when sorry, baby break. What is the the website where they put that racers use, the MLS. They're now talking about putting utility bills on the MLS, so that when you're comparing homes, you're actually looking at how well is that home for the water. So that's going to be a huge game changer as well.
All right, thank you. So we're going to talk about marketing, but I'm going to be completely honest with you. I'm going to be looking at my computer a little bit, screen, looking at my notes here as well, because I made some notes while I was sitting back there. But more importantly, I'll probably be stressing about, are the sandwiches going to be here on time for you guys? a lot of things going on. This seminar came about because it's a marketing sales seminar is what this is. And one thing that was fascinating to me when I first got involved with this is if I wanted to find out some of the technical aspects of these clean energy homes, I go online, I can find that information, find experts like Nick to tell you about what's going on. And but being a marketing person, it's like the easiest thing is how to sell the homes. I mean, that's what that would be. However, that's really where the breakdown has been. Where and this is why this whole program came about, because people are talking about people are selling homes, but they're not being very efficient about it. What ended up happening was they would tell people like, these are all the features that are in the home. Isn't it great? But how does that translate to the home buyer? Why is that of interest to them? So that was the breakdown that was occurring, and then I realized, wow, this is really important, because this isn't happening just to one person or one company. This is happening industry-wide. So that's the reason for what we're talking about. Now, when it comes to marketing, one of the first things that's going to be most important is, do you have a product in place? And the thing is going to be that these new homes that are available for 2020 are going to be some of the best homes in the country that are being built. So that's the main. So the first issue having the product is being achieved. Now the second thing from marketing perspective is who are you talking to? We tend to look at consumers and look at them in different ways, from geography, culturally. In this particular case, we're going to look at them from an energy persona. We broke this down. For the other groups, we broke it down into 4 categories. One of them that's not on here is the resale buyer who's just going to buy the old home. You guys are architects, that's not important here. So these are the three groups that we're talking about. The energy steward, this person has made a lifelong commitment to this, doing a different, having a different kind of lifestyle. They know the benefits of the energy efficient homes, and they're trying to actually sell. They're looking for disciples. As I came up and started talking about this, I was thinking about who would be the embodiment of this energy steward. And then I was thinking Ed Begley Jr., but the thing is, like, a lot of people today don't know who he is. So yesterday when I was watching our presentation, I realized our Ed Begley Jr. is actually Nick. He's the guy that's out there. He invested his money, time, suffered these cold showers, and he's looking to make disciples out of regarding energy efficiency. So that's the energy steward. This is who the new home buyer is. Now, then there's two other profiles we're looking at. Is the energy efficiency promoter. This individual has many values similar to that of Nick, of the steward. However, there's something that's holding this individual back. They're not willing to make the commitment to it. Where the steward may be driving a Tesla, the promoter is driving a hybrid, but the reason is very different. They're looking to save money, whereas the steward is looking to make a difference in life and society. So that's a big difference. But there's something that's holding this person back. Then the last one is cost buyer. They're just kind of looking at the numbers. What makes the most sense for me? What can I afford? Now, when you look at what the features are that people look in the house, the dark green are the must-haves. This is what Nick was talking about. So we have Energy Star rated windows, appliances, everything Energy Star rated, and then over here you see these are the things that would be very desirable. But you see that there's a need for these clean energy homes. It's not going to go away, and obviously with the new regulations, they're going to continue to exist. Now, the National Association of Home Buyers did a study earlier this year, and when they did the study, they asked people, how much are you willing to pay for a new? Do you want a clean green home? The answer was yes. How much are you willing to pay for that? People were, they weren't interested in paying more for the house. It was a very simple question. So they took it a step further. If we can reduce your utility bills, are you willing to pay for it, and how much are you willing to pay? So now about 86% of people are interested in spending money to save money in the long run. So this is where the breakdown was with the sales reps. They were talking about the features, but the value, the benefit to the home buyer, that was non-existent. Now, one of the things that we look at here in Southern California, we are a very diverse population. We come from different countries. We speak different languages, so we are different from all these other parts of the country. But yet, when you look at the personas we're talking about, the home buyer, even the person that's not on the list, the resale buyer, when you look at the people from geography, you look at them from culture. What do they all want? They want clean energy. They want to have a safer home, a clean home, as well as saving money. So no matter where they're from, what their backgrounds are, they all agree on the same thing. Saving money is going to be key to this. Now, this is the features are wanted by energy efficient features of a home that people want by ethnicity. We don't have to go into it and identify each one. What's important, again, goes back to the fact that different people, different backgrounds, different interests, yet they all agree that they want the energy efficiency. As time goes by, as we become more educated about it, as we as an industry start talking to them, then this is only going to increase. Now, again, going back to being here in Southern California, African American consumer, they want to focus on savings. Family health is going to be critical to this group. The Asian community, a lot of here in California, Los Angeles, Chinese. They have they know they're well aware of the issues, the health issues, the air quality in the homeland. That gets transferred here. They're very aware of it, so they want better air quality, which is what you will get in your homes. healthy, make sure that it's healthy for the family. They want to have energy efficient products. They want the latest products. We looked at Latino consumer, home buyer. This person here, also they're looking for how can they save money. It's all about the family, making sure that the environment is positive for the family. And one of the things that we encourage you to do and I'm not an architect, but when we, from the advertising perspective, we're very driven by insight. So it's not like some people think like, hey, this is a cool idea and we should promote it. No, we really have to be, the cool insight, the cool idea comes from a deep dive to identify the insight. So things such as, this is a big insight, but Latino families are larger than other families. So therefore, if you're trying to sell homes in, say, Downey, you're going to want to make sure that you have larger, you have more bedrooms in those homes versus another area. Again, driven by insight. Now, we're going to look at messaging. Now, when I took a look at this, it took me a long time to figure out that this is where's Waldo. It took me a while. It took me even longer to figure out where Waldo actually was. But the thing that's happening in today is that if everybody is improving their homes, how do you differentiate yourself? As we were sitting around and talking about this, it reminded me of a commercial that I saw. This is even before I was driving. I can't even tell you why this commercial has been with me for so long. But back in the day, they put a car on train tracks, and they put a gallon of gas on the car, and they said, okay, we're going to see how far this car goes. But what they did was, and this was just regular gasoline. So the car went down the road. Let's just say it went for about 10 miles, something like that. And then the gas company that was promoting this car, they said, okay, now we're going to run this car with something that sounded like tetracycline. I don't know what it was, but now they put it on the same train tracks, let it run, and if the other one went 15 miles, this one went 18 miles. And then the point difference was, by having this product in your gasoline, your car is going to perform better. You're going to go farther. So I thought this was fascinating. Then I started getting into the world of advertising. And then I found out that actually all gasoline at that time had to have that particular additive that they were talking about. But what they did was they used that as a point of differentiation. It wasn't that they were better. They just started talking about it sooner than everybody else. So now when it comes to marketing of these homes, this is what we're dealing with. So the difference is, to some degree, is going to be non-existent. Is going to be non-existent. So now, by not talking about your homes differently, it's going to be a missed opportunity that you have. You really have to differentiate your product, your home, from other people. Here we're going to take a look at some of the websites for some of the homes that are out there. Meritage does a really good job of promoting their homes as being energy efficient. They even their tagline, which you can't see here, is setting the standard for energy efficient homes. That's a beautiful line. However, as we look at what's going on in the industry, that standard, that's the standard that they set, is not going to be a standard for everybody. So now, how are they going to respond to it? And then when you look at other areas of their website, they talk about their pillars, about savings, cleaner homes, and peace of mind because the homes are built better, as well as cost. This here is. Then they have energy. They have content on their websites to promote the things that they're doing better in their homes. This here's a new home company. This is the group that we met with yesterday, and they're talking about, right here it says, build a better life. And they're talking about establishing the new standards for homes. It's a very strong message. It works very well. They have content that goes about it, and they talk about energy sustainability, the EV pre-wire, the water conservation. Again, all this is really great, but now this is the standard for the industry. This one here is D Young Properties. When you look at it, when you go to the website, and you see Zero Energy, you know what it is that they're talking about. They're hammering it. There's no question what they're doing. And when they go out there, they're talking about everything that they talk about. All the touch points about is about the new homes, and their tagline is tomorrow's home today. The problem is, tomorrow's home's already here for everybody. Now, how are they gonna respond to it? It'll be very interesting to see that how the firms that are actually doing it well, how they're going to adjust to the marketplace, and the ones that aren't involved, how they're going to address this. Another thing that came about as we were having conversations about the homes is with not everybody's ready to start building these homes right now. And it's like, well, how is this going to work? And then from a marketing perspective, what's occurring is some of these home builders are actually having their old homes are being grandfathered in, so maybe they won't start building the homes new homes until middle of next year. So the dilemma, but then they're already planning new properties that can be developed. The dilemma that they're going to be facing now is some of these properties may not be that far apart from one another. So now they have an old home that they're trying to sell, and then they're going to have this new, more efficient home that they're also trying to sell. So the property value for the existing home is actually going to be lower than the new home. So that's the dilemma that they're going to have to deal with. So maybe they don't promote it until they can get fully online, and then they'll be able to move forward with it. And this is how you as architects can really help out. You got to work with developers to help them create their California energy story and be able to make your story part of their story, so they can better go out there and communicate with the public, communicate with the home buyers. Identify, come up with a energy efficiency brand positioning for yourselves. It's very critical, and then help make your story part of their story, the home builder story as well. When you go out there, again, going back to, if you look at this from a marketing perspective, what's the insight? What's the home buyer looking for? Design the homes that way, and that's, have meetings with the home buyers, with the developers, find out what's going on. Also, the focus should be from what you're building, from the marketing, cost, health, and environment. Make sure that they have a healthy environment, a healthy house, and healthy savings. And another issue that can come back, I'm not sure exactly how it can work with you, but co-branding a product with the developers would be very efficient. So there's a product that you're recommending that you're dealing with, that would be great. And then just work with the developers and assist them with developing the energy efficiency story that they can take to the marketplace. That's all I have. Do you have any questions on marketing?
It's kind of interesting because this is a part of projects that I don't think of that often, so it's kind of interesting to hear about how these home builders have to sell and market their homes. I think two things that I thought about was, as architects, we also can market ourselves better, and a lot of what we do is code. I mean, we all have to now follow the code, but similar to what you're saying with the home builders, we can market ourselves to potential clients by just talking about those codes, because most people don't even know what's code, what's not. And so an architect that is on top of those codes, we have an advantage, and clients might look our way. And then also what you were saying about architects helping their clients, the developer, almost even talk about maybe how they went above code, or from Nick's presentation, and we know from codes, it's not cut and dry. There are always codes that are in conflict and redundancies, and I think that's our role as architects, to kind of take this whole, pot of code and turn it into an end product that's better. So each one of us will deal with the code a little bit differently.
Right.
And if we can also promote how, with a home builder, how they work within the code, but produce something even better than maybe their competitor.
Right.
With the same code, and we do that as architects as well. So it was just kind of, I don't think about some of these things, but it was interesting to hear what you had to say.
From a marketing perspective, what you want to do is, from a branding perspective, you want to make sure that each touch point that the consumer comes in are all supporting one direction. If we were to look at automobiles, you don't want somebody say, you know, you see a commercial that's all about, you know, a family safe car, and then you over here, you see a commercial for the same vehicle, but they're talking about speed. It doesn't work that way. So you want to have all the touch points be the same. So that's why I would encourage you to engage the developer and start that discussion, the planning process, so that the features that you're talking about, the features that they will be talking about, are actually planned and not just an afterthought that you try to force into it. That's what we see is currently happening. Either it's being forced in there, or it's not being dealt with at all. Right, thank you. And I'm sorry, yes.
Sort of a more selfish question, you know, just all my colleagues, how would you differentiate a design firm, let's say? Like we all know the code, we're all doing the same thing, marketing yourself. I guess it's almost like the home builder, hey, we follow X, Y, Z, or hey, look, we know how to design to X standards, or any.
So the dilemma that you're talking about is the same dilemma that the homeowners are going to be dealing with. You know, professional services, I would look to, you know, it's going to be about how you position yourself. So one of the things that you can do is, hey, I've been designing these kinds of homes for 5 years. No, you know, other people can't, you know, may not be able to make that claim. Or, you know, talk about the size of the projects that you've been working on, identify what's going to be unique about what you're doing to be able to get to that point. And, you know, attending programs such as this, making contacts with people, that's going to be the key thing. But just like a lot of professional services, is going to I can't tell you enough about how to the value of networking. It's going to be very valuable. I would take a look at your website, and you know, if you want to talk about, you know, more detailed marketing, but really make sure that the materials that you produce, your website, all the touch points that you have, position yourself as somebody that's an expert in the field.
Well, I'd add that, remember that silly story about the woman who bought the fridge because the motor didn't require oiling? So let's say you have a buyer who's environmentally motivated in front of you, or IAQ motivated, indoor air quality. Did you know my houses come with MERV 13 filtration? It pulls diesel particles out of the air. If your competitor isn't talking about it, you just differentiated yourself, even though that's a code item. Or my houses are cash flow positive compared to where you live now. How would you like to have $5,000 every 5 years to spend on a big vacation? Whatever their motivating point is, right? You guys are probably good at reading that with your clients. And you have additional tools in this code cycle to sell to those clients. And to the earlier point, I wonder if some of you will look at the decision to treat a project as a remodel versus new construction differently now. Because by opening up the walls and sealing them better, you can do different things than you can do in a remodel. You can sell a different environment, a different value proposition to that buyer. And so where I used to sort of aid and abet my architects in trying to make the project comply the easiest way possible, I'm going to be a louder advocate, I think, for implementing some of these upgrades and these code changes, and maybe even considering doing it as new construction in all that implies, because we can provide a better home to live in. Not going to be right for every client, but maybe it changes our calculus a little bit. But at a minimum, we can take some of these items and put it in a renovation project. They're equally applicable to a renovation project, but some of them just not possible in a renovation.
This program was, I said, designed to be a sales and marketing program. And so when I look at what I do from an advertising perspective, completely different from what somebody's selling at home. Yet I've also been involved heavily with business development for advertising agencies when I'm sitting there. And when Mike Moore is talking to the sales reps and telling the sales agents and telling them, you're useless, people don't want to talk to you, what you should do is you should become, be a resource for people. And so when I'm sitting there listening to him from an advertising perspective, yeah, that's what I do. I think that'd be something that you could do. This is changing the landscape for everybody drastically. And there's people that are delaying getting to the process right now because they don't know what to do, because they're scared. So if you can develop that skill set and and you can become that resource, and that would be a way, that's the way I position myself when I'm talking to people, because I do a lot of multicultural marketing as well, and so they don't know how to, well, how do I sell this product to the Latino audience when I don't speak Spanish? So I don't go in there and try to tell them, like, you know, buy this, do this. It's kind of like, no, let's have a conversation. Let me be a resource for you. So then when the need comes up, hey Alex, can you help me out? You know, I have this project that I'm working on. I think if you can become a resource to the home developers, that'd be the greatest asset you can do.
So I'd like to close by thanking AIA, my home chapter of AIA. Christine and Karina and everyone's fantastic. They organized this whole thing as partners with us. I'd like to thank Studio 111, who I count as friends, as well as the preeminent architecture firm in Long Beach, doing great things for downtown. And I'd like to thank Southern California Edison for sponsoring the development of this important, needed program. So lunch is served. Feel free to hang out and eat it. Talk amongst yourselves, share your war stories, and we'll be around for questions too. Thank you. And there's a post survey that'll help us assess the value of this training. I encourage you to take it. And I think it's required for you to get your CE credits. Alex, did you pick up that form, the sign-in